Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to say Happy New Year's. I'm not doing another show until after New Year's. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you guys here. But this is a big show I'm going to talk about next year. I'm going to talk about a lot of the subjects that are happening in the news in this show. And so what is today? Today is the 30th, December 30th. It's Friday. Anyway, thank God it's Friday. But it's New Year's too. So we're having the New Year's this weekend. And I hope you guys have a nice New Year's celebration. I know you guys have probably made some New Year's resolutions. Probably one of the biggest New Year's resolutions out there is to lose weight and get in shape. Everybody just about has that one. And then some of the other New Year's resolutions, some people are going to be like, I'm going to stop drinking this year. Some people are, I'm going to stop smoking this year. Some people are like, I'm not going to spend as much money this year. But you know what? This is going to be a trying year. And what do I mean by that? We have a financial system that I don't think it's going to make it through to the end of the year without some sort of a blow up. And then massive inflation coming on the other side of that. So don't save in dollars this year, because what we're going to have is during the blow up we might have some disinflation. And we might even be headed toward deflation. But then they're going to turn it all around when they do that. They're going to have to do that, by the way. There's no choice, no way out. And all this is coming due this year. We're going to see inflation on the other side of that. And it's going to drive the price of things like cryptocurrencies, real assets. It's going to be the beginning of a massive raise in price of things that are real. And among those things, probably gold and silver are going to finally find their year for the gold and silver. It's going to be the year for, probably toward the end of this year, it's going to be massive for gold and silver. So if you've been a long-term gold and silver investor and you've got really down in the dumps because it's been bad for such a long time, well, we're finally going to see something good happen, I think, for that toward the end of this year. And also this year, we got this war to worry about, and how it's going to come to its conclusion. Both sides are really not thinking about ending it yet. They're not really serious. But perhaps they will get serious after a lot more losses occur on both sides. So we got that, and that's probably going to find its end and conclusion this year. And let's just hope it's not something that morphs into a much larger war outside the borders of Ukraine or Russia. Let's just hope it just fizzles away. We're going to take a look now at Zero Hedge. So we're going to open up the charts right here. Take a look at what's going on and some of the stories that we're following here. We're going to talk about some of them. I'm not going to bother with this story about the whole FTX thing. Except to say, in another thing, that I guess they let him out of jail or whatever. Bail, I think they call it. I don't know if he was in jail, but anyway, see right down here on this article I was looking at this morning. It says the FTX founder reportedly cashes out $684,000 after being released on bail. I don't know if nowadays if they put you in jail, even they just set bail. Maybe I don't know you might not even go to jail. But anyway, he's out there, and he's got $648,000, cashed out $648 from the crypto exchange while being under house arrest. That's what I hear there. And, anyway, so Twitter, COVID-19 censorship. Twitter's COVID-19 censorship has led to the loss of life, says former White House advisor Scott Elias. Well, I'll tell you, I remember, it wasn't that long ago really, that the censorship was so profound that you did not want to say COVID, the word COVID, here on YouTube. It could lead to big problems for your channel. Just to say that word. So a lot of people started using other things, saying other things like, I remember one channel, they're using other acronyms or things to kind of, they'd call it the virus, or they would call it whatever they had to do, but not say the word or what it was. That's how bad the censorship was during a certain period of time. you know. Now it's getting more loose. It's starting to open up a little bit again, you know, and people aren't so. We went through a period there where it wasn't just that, it was other things. You had to be very careful what you talked about. People were so sensitive about what you would say. Just typical things like you couldn't even call, you can't, I don't even know, even now I'm a little bit worried. You can't call a man, a woman a woman. You can't call I can't even say ladies and gentlemen on here. It was like somebody would have an objection, you know, for a little while there. It was a very difficult period in time. You had to be so careful what you said, not to get strikes and have them kick you off of the formats, the different formats. It was like a, and it's getting a little bit better, but it's still kind of rough out here in this world of what you say. You have to be careful, you know. Let's just hope as we move into 2023, people will start to calm down a little bit, and cooler heads will prevail, and they'll say, well, only say things that are you know, more normal with this sort of thing, rather than restricting speech. See, you know, we can get into a period in time where they not only restrict speech, but they restrict thoughts. And this has happened before in history. During the Spanish Inquisition, they would take somebody in and they would start to torture them, and they would torture them until they would say what they thought they were supposed to say, or what they thought they were, their thoughts. Just they'd say, well, you thunk the unthinkable thought now. And the guy says, no, I haven't. Put him on the rack, right? And then we'll get him to admit that he thunked the unthinkable thought. And as soon as he says, yes, he thunked the unthinkable thought because the rack is pulling his bones out of his joints, then we got him where we want him, you know, and just that sort of a thing. And that's when the law starts to go too far, the law of the land. And it can go too far and very easily slip in that direction where the people out here are, you think you haven't seen persecution compared to what the government can do if they can get laws into effect that allow them to persecute you. And they got so many different ways of figuring out how to do this. Don't think it can't go there. It has during history, over and over and over again. And the only thing that keeps it from going there is the people say, hey, we don't want to go there, en masse. Now, we get an example of this just last week. Over in China, you know, they were getting very restrictive with the people. And the people said, hell no, we don't want this anymore. So what happened is the government loosened up. And now they're opening up their economy, you know. The thing is, though, is they were, to a certain degree, successful in holding back that virus to a certain... They weren't stopping it because it was still spreading. But once they opened the floodgates up like they have now it's spreading like crazy through the country. Just like it did over here, you know. The Omicron went everywhere and made almost everyone sick with it. You know, but we got over it. We had it. It was a bad flu. We got over it, and now we have a certain amount of immunity. Well, the people in China don't have immunity, and that's why it's spreading so fast. But by gosh, they're going to have immunity pretty soon. Probably another couple more months down the road from now. They're going to get it by having the virus, and it seems like that's what happens with this whole thing. You know, that's how it works. I mean, it's so transmissible. It says the markets are full of idiots. Listen to them. Herd stupidity is the problem, but it is also an opportunity. Well, you know, if everybody's an idiot and they buy the same thing in the market, that's going to go up whether it wants to or not. It says the markets are full of idiots. Listen to them. Okay, let's see. Who's the idiots it's talking about here? Markets are just enormous voting machines, calculating the opinion of every participant. Therefore, no single idiot can drive them, but they can certainly influence how other participants vote. And so it's showing a picture here. Is this the idiots they're talking about? I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the main page again. Uh, Let me see what's going on. Futures slide on the final day of trading of 2022. They're saying it's going to be choppy out there. Choppy first few weeks of the year while central banks keep up their hawkish tone. But then a more positive second quarter and onwards as inflation declines. I don't know about that. I think that it might take a little bit of a shock in the markets to get these hawks to turn dovish again. But at any rate, I think it's right that it is going to, as we move deeper into the year, that we're going to move through this period of negativity in the markets. But then the inflation's going to roar back to life. Southwest Airlines, it says, resumes normal flight operations after a week of hell. You know, it's like I was saying on my last show, they don't have any right to do this to people. You know, because it's just a matter of them just doing a blanket shutdown of all the flights, whether they need to shut them down or not. Instead of, in the old days, what they used to do, in order to shut down a flight, they had to have a real storm or a real emergency out there. Not just saying, oh, there's storms everywhere in America, we got to shut down everything the whole way, the whole coast to coast, because there's storms out there. That's just doing something in a blanket fashion, rather than saying, okay, is this storm going to impact this airplane if it flies from point A to point B? And if the answer is no, then let the flight proceed. But they don't do that anymore. Not ever since COVID. Ever since COVID, we start doing things in a blanket fashion. Oh, sure, shut the whole country down, do a lockdown of the whole country. Boom, boom, that's blanket. That's doing something blanket. Instead of putting the effort in to do something in a specific fashion. Kind of like a farmer if he's got his field out there, you know. And say one little corner of the field gets aphids or bugs in one little corner of the field eating his plants. Well, the easy way for him to do it is just to blanket the whole thing, cover it all with pesticide. But the hard way to do it is to go in there and find out where he needs to put it and just put enough to cover that area, enough pesticide to cover that little area that's infested. That's the thing nowadays. Is they're just getting lazy. It's like my dad always used to say about a lazy man's load. When I was a young guy, he seen somebody carrying too much stuff. The guy's legs were wobbling, and he had about 5 bags on top of his back and about maybe 2 bags in front, and he's carrying all this stuff. More stuff than he should carry, either carrying it or carrying it on his vehicle. My dad used to call that a lazy man's load. Because he's trying to carry everything in one load. Because he doesn't want to make 2 trips. He doesn't want to make the effort to make 2 trips. He wants to cover it all in one trip. That's a lazy man's load. A not lazy person's load is they make several trips and they take smaller amount each time, so that that's not being lazy. And this is the same thing that applies to these aircraft and stuff. The not lazy way to do it is to analyze each flight and decide whether that flight needs to be shut down, rather than just blanket shutting down everything. That's the lazy man's way of doing it, or a lazy company. Okay, there's an article that's close to us. Zoltan's year-end masterpiece, Dusk for the Petrodollar, Dawn for the Petro-Yuan, and the coming commodity rehypothecation. Well, they won't let me into this article, but it says, for 2 generations of investors, geopolitics did not matter. This time is different. It's time to get real, and it's time to start pricing in the secular end of lowflation. Well, you know what? We had free trade. We had trade, a lot of trade across countries and boundaries, and this kept world peace to a certain degree. When the economic war began, trade war begun between the United States and China, that was basically an extension of that becoming a real war. A real war, a hot war. And that's where we went, and now sides have been drawn. Over in the east, they've drawn sides. China and Russia and Iran and the BRICS. You know? And over here in the west, we got the United States and NATO and all that, and they're drawing sides. Our side against your side. And there's a war going on right now. And a hot war even. But also a trade war. And of course, because this has happened, yes, there's a big fight over world supremacy of currency, which is the petrodollar. They're taking it down bit by bit. It says, Australian Defence Minister warns Europeans are unprepared for coming days of long blackouts, leaving 1/3 of citizens unable to supply themselves. Well, we'll see. People are very resilient. We'll see if it's that bad, but maybe it will be. Because they're going into a long, hard winter here. And we're getting right into the nitty-gritty of it now. ExxonMobil launches legal challenge against EU over windfall profit tax. The Ukraine lashes out at Orban's pro-peace stance on Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Turkey bets on Black Sea gas/import dependence. Finland proposes a 30% windfall tax on power companies, dubbed the EU energy crisis contribution. Russia brings Turkey and Syria together for first high-level talks since 2011. Now, UFOs, it says, the topic continues to stir debate with more sightings. They've changed the name of those things from UFO, unidentified flying object, to unidentified aerial phenomenon. But I guess it's the same thing. Rolex watch theft hits major western cities. So, I guess you're walking down the street and they're going to try to steal your watch. Despite massive COVID wave, high-frequency indicators show China's traffic congestion rebounds. China is opening back up. Yeah, well, they got a massive COVID wave. I talked about that earlier in the show. It's because they haven't had the infection. A lot of them haven't. They've actually kept it out of China to a certain degree. Now they're all catching it. But over here in the West, we've all had it. I guess the best way really to get rid of it is to have it. Shots, all I'm going to do is shrug my shoulders. But having the virus seems to be immunity. It seems to be you receive a certain amount of immunity from having the virus. And it's so contagious, there's no way not to have the virus. So everything they did, all the mask mandates and social distancing and lockdowns and all the stuff that they did, they're dealing with a virus that's so contagious, none of it really did any good. And the Chinese went through that, and they had to learn that doesn't do any good. Now they've opened up to it and said, okay, and it embraced it, and it's just going through China like a hot knife through butter. But the thing about it is it'll get it over and done with, and in about 2 or 3 months from now, probably it'll see numbers declining in China. And then it'll disappear like it has over here. Start to disappear. In other words, what I'm saying is all of those efforts, we've taken a whole generation of kids now, and we've basically messed with their minds. Children who had to go through the lockdowns, and they can't hardly read. A lot of them were like 5 or 6 years old when the lockdowns hit, and they had years of this stuff. And now they're way behind in their reading and writing skills, but that's not all. Their social skills are absolutely horrendous. They feel more comfortable behind a mask. Socially. They got, what do they call it, agoraphobia or whatever, when people are scared to the marketplace. They're going to all grow up with fear. All of them are going to grow up with a lot of fears. Weird fears. And in society, how are they going to fit in with society? And we did all that damage for nothing. Because we would have been through with this thing so much faster if we had just said, well, let her go, boys, just like the Chinese just did. Let her go. And then you're rid of it. You're rid of it a few months later. It's not fun, because you nearly cough your guts out, you know, trying to get it up out of your lungs and stuff. I mean, it's a horrible, sticky virus. It can go into long COVID and everything else. It's not fun to get rid of it that way, but that seems like that's the only way, because it is a something that is ungodly. I'll put that term on it. Also, with the amount of people that did die from it, and there's no way to stop it. And I can see in the future that it could be the most dangerous virus in the world, because look, this immunity that we have worldwide, that we've earned through being sick, it's not going to last forever, probably. I mean, it could. I'm just not sure how long the immunity lasts, but there's a high probability in my mind that it's not a forever immunity. So this is what we get into when we start to build laboratories, and we get in there and we build these, what's called gain of function research, which is ungodly research. It's evil, profoundly evil. The chimera, I think they call it too, and gain of function, where they're actually creating new things. It's like something out of those sci-fi movies we used to have, where we had this virus that would come from space. One of those movies was called the Andromeda Strain. Great movie. You need to watch this movie, Andromeda Strain. But it kind of portrays what we could go through here worthwhile if they keep up this research, this ungodly research of I think they call it chimera and gain of function and stuff. Of the things that they're starting to be able to do with these viruses they weren't able to do in these laboratories, these bioweapons facilities years ago. They weren't able to do stuff like this. Now they're able to create something that would be able to basically wipe humanity out. Gone. Poof, our species gone. And, you know, with nuclear weapons, they're all in there and saying, okay, we got to have limiting treaties, and we got to do this, and we got to do that. We're going to limit what countries can have them, and blah, blah, blah. There's laws in place. Well, to a certain degree. Not enough as far as I'm concerned. They should get rid of all those nuclear weapons. They should. But there are limitations, and there's no limitations, I guess, for these bioweapon things and stuff. And, you know, in the future, I could see it coming to a point where people could work on this kind of stuff in their own backyard, because of our technology is improving, so that it used to take, this specialized technology was only available to select people. Even now, it's only available to select people. But what about when we move ahead with technology, and the internet allows technology to be shared all over the place, and the technology grows so that some of these things that are available, like WMDs, are able to be made in people's backyards. I mean, it's all got to be the only answer to all these things is training of the people, so that even these people out there who are psychopaths and stuff, with the proper kind of training, they can be rehabilitated. And so it's all got to do with how you train. If you got people out there and you're it's the same way with kids, you know, when people are raising their kids and stuff, how they're brought up and stuff. It's a problem that's getting intrinsic in mankind now, whereas, like it says here, like depression and anxiety and addictions and so on, and PTSD and all this kind of stuff out there, and people that are all on medications, and medications are not the panacea for the people. You just don't pop them a med and say, oh, now you're fine, you can go out in society, blah, blah, blah. No, you got to treat the underlying problem, which is a psychological problem. But no, what are they doing? They're locking all the kids up with COVID, doing this blanket policy again, the lazy man's way of doing things. And you're going to have all these kids coming up in the next generation who are going to be maladjusted to the world. And at the same time, they're going to have all these different problems like opioid addictions, depressions, anxiety, and everything else. And what's the solution to all of this? You know, is give them the technology to build WMDs in their own backyards. Oh, we're just toast. Unless we can turn this thing around, in 20 years, we're toast. In less than 20 years, even. Because the technology's coming that quick. You know? We're toast. Nothing left of our species. Unless we can turn this thing around. Turn this ship around. It's just too many problems out there. And they're moving forward really fast with making our whole society into something that is like very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Everything relies upon something else, and it's all interconnected. So like a farmer can't get out and plow his field unless the internet's turned on. Power outage, internet's turned off. In the end, you're not going to be able to even plow their field because their tractor will be connected to the internet. All the trucking now is connected to the internet. These trucks cannot be routed now. But we used to be able to do it without the internet because we didn't have the internet. Same thing with stores and store registers. You know, the register, they have a chain of stores, you know. And in the chain, they'll have a central location where they have a computer set up with some sort of server or whatever, and all the stores plug into that. And the registers all work off of that so they can do inventory and stuff. And the registers are plugged into the internet. And they cannot actually function. And they're doing away with cash as fast as they can. The one last thing out there so that they could function in some sort of a crisis situation, so that they could still sell things. They're getting rid of it as fast as they can. They're moving into a society here where we're not going to be able to even function unless the internet and the power grid's turned on. But yet they're sitting here and they're telling you people openly, they're saying, hey, this power grid is unstable. It can't even withstand a cold snap. Rolling power outages if we even get a cold snap. They're telling you it's unstable in Europe and in the United States and everywhere. They're telling you the power grid's unstable. It can't handle a heavy load right now. But at the same time, they've made a society where if the power goes out for any length of time, everything falls to pieces. And nobody is out there that can put it back together again. And then we got the instability coming up for this next generation of kids that have been negatively impacted by these diseases that we created. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that because it hasn't been proven. Okay, so I'm not going to say that. I'm going to retract that. Because it hasn't been proven. But, I mean, come on. You know? What's your conclusion? I know what my conclusion is. And what really is scary is they're probably in back rooms someplace creating a lot more of them, a lot worse. Because they made a hell of a lot of money off of that one. And isn't that what it all boils down to? But what's it going to do? Good's it going to do them? Because sooner or later what they're going to do is take the whole system down. And I don't care if they're in a swimming pool full of money. They're not going to fare any better than any one of us out here. Because all the laws fall to pieces. The laws that hold them up and support them fall to pieces at that point in time. And we're in a Mad Max world. And then it's only barbarism. It's only the most barbaric people out there who are going to be able to survive. Not the most intellectual. Don't you think it's kind of bizarre? This is a totally bizarre world we have here. You could go to somebody and say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city. And you say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city. And you say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city. And you say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city. And you say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city. And you say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city. And you say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city. And you say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city. And you say, okay, what part of town or part of the city do you want to live in? And they would say, well, I want to live in the city do the working people, the people who actually work, like most of the people don't work, a lot of people don't work, okay? So where do the people who never done a day's work in their life, where do they live? And where do the people who do all the work, where do they live? Well, in a normal world, a world that's functioning properly, the people that actually work and do something to support the system should be the ones in the nicer homes and in the nicer section of town. While the people who don't work, they should be over there begging from the people that work for a few scraps. They should be over there in that section of town where the slums are, the people that don't work, because they don't accomplish anything. And the people that work, they should be over in a nice section of town with expensive homes and stuff like that, because they worked for it. But no, in this world, you know how it is? You'd be driven by a taxi driver to the section of town where the people that work are, and that's going to be the slums and the poverty section. And get him to drive you over to the people who've never worked a day in their life, the people who all have a personal lawyer or attorney that works for them. And then you get the mansions. What sort of a world is that? It's a world that's corrupted. It's a world that's upside down. Well, you know, nature hates a vacuum. It abhors a vacuum. What I mean by that is in nature, that's what you find. A vacuum can exist. In other words, something that's upside down can exist in nature, but not for a long period of time. It's not lasting. Nature will find a way of swinging things back around to what's normal. Normal function, rather than something that's something that shouldn't be, shouldn't have never been. And that's what's going to happen with this world, is ultimately in the end, the people that work and accomplish something will have the fruitages of their labor. And the crooks, they will be gone, ultimately in the end. That's the way, because that's the way nature insists it's going to work out. And this upside down world we have right now, if we don't become extinct, and we're in danger actually of extincting ourselves, and anybody in there comes in there that tries to stop this process, it seems like they are voted out or whatever. They don't want them in place. Anybody who tries to stop this process from happening, the process of our extinction. And it's just a wicked mess that's going on with all these politicians who are on the take. They are just, honest to God, you know, I mean, it's just sick. It's a really, really sick world out there, where they're all taking care of one another. And this is why the people at work are not ever going to be able to get ahead, because they're all taking care of one another. These clubs of these. But they're going to destroy they're going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, is what they're going to do in the end. And we might actually go extinct, because they're setting us up in a way that we can't function or take care of ourselves without this massive electronic technological structure that they're building functioning. And it has so many flaws in it where it can come down overnight. You know, I mean, just a week or two ago, you know, a bunch of people went in there, and I don't know who they were, but they went into these substations where they distribute the power, and they just basically, I guess, shot them up or whatever, and it just knocked the power grid out knocked it for a loop. That shows vulnerability to me of the power grid. The power grid is totally vulnerable to the sun, for crying out loud, you know? But we're totally reliant upon it now. We shouldn't be. Back in the 1800s, we never had a power grid. Our system was tough. And it was able to make it through any challenges, because every person out there was basically a farmer. They all knew how to create food and how to take care of themselves. And they would only go into the store, little country stores dotted the landscape, and they would go in there about once a month and get a few what's called necessities. About once a month. A few things like sugar, but they could do without that. And they weren't sick much, people. People are all sick now. Everybody's on antibiotics all the time, 24/7. They move from one antibiotic to the next one. And doctors say, oh, we got to limit antibiotics, how much we give people, because of these, we're creating diseases that are antibiotic resistant. But then the people need it, they're going to die without it, so they keep prescribing it to them anyway because they're all sick. Why are they all sick? Is because of the food they're feeding them and the system that they got going and all these medications and everything. The medical system represents such a large part now of this structure of this system that if it goes down, the whole system will go down. In other words, we only make profit. We only make profit if people are sick. The more people that are sick, the more profit is made. The more the system is sick. Anyway, listen, guys, I gotta quit ranting. I ranted for 30 minutes about this, and it's just terrible what they got going. But it's not being improved. It's getting worse by every generation, and it's heading to a point, a culmination point, coming up soon. If anything happens that could go wrong, will go wrong, and the power grid goes down worldwide from some gosh knows what. It could be anything from a nuclear weapon causing it to a solar flare from the sun, or a meteor from space, or any one of dozens of other things. Even the people attacking the system themselves because they're just like a bunch too many rats in a cage. And here we go, boys. That's it. Because there's nobody out there that can get it all started again. You can't jumpstart it. They've created a system. It's kind of like these new airplanes and stuff they got out there. You know, they're all computerized. In the old days, they pushed a button and it started the plane, and it didn't have to. Now you got to go through all these system protocols and stuff they're putting in order just to start the plane, and the computer has to be functioning. Several computers. What happens when it needs rebooting? I can just see it now. You know, we got to get in the air. We got to get in the air. There's an attack coming at our base. You know, and they got all these planes on the ground. They got the pilots in there pushing buttons. Computer, please start up. And the computer says, I need to reboot. System needs rebooting. System needs a Windows update. And he's sitting there waiting for the Windows to update on his computer. He can't fly off the flight deck. And in comes the Russians or whatever, you know, and they're boom, boom, boom. They blow the planes right up on the flight deck because of some stupid computer. It's the system we're creating for ourselves. Anyway, listen. Bye, guys. Have a great and happy New Year, and we'll catch you guys on the next, when the markets open back up. Bye-bye.